Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Abigail Baton. My pronouns are she and hers. I'm a member of the Worship and Music Committee, and I will be your worship associate this morning. And I want to tell you as we begin that our wonderful Lydia is working very hard on the sound system, and she's doing brilliant things, and it's going to be wonderful. But as Emily said, 8 steps forward, 1 step back. This morning is 1 step back. We are without sound, so I think we all will be able to project our voices.
Yeah.
So if you can't hear me, raise your hand, but good. Hopefully you can. All right. I'm delighted to welcome, just dropped a pencil. I'm delighted to welcome you here, whether you are visiting this morning or a regular member. Please check with a greeter if you have any questions. Today we acknowledge that we are located in a place that was once the Wampanoag village of Patuxent. We strive to follow their example and be faithful stewards of this sacred land. Our service today is presented by Reverend Paul Sprecher. Because our services vary from week to week, we suggest you visit us again to experience the variety of worship we offer. If you're a visitor, please consider signing the guest book, which is in the foyer, so you may receive our weekly e-blast. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, let us walk together this hour.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a preaching voice and I mostly remember to use it. But if I should fall below your hearing range, just put your hand to your ear and I'll do a little better. See what happened? It's lovely to be in the Church of the Pilgrims who arrived here some 405 years ago. I've never been here before, so thank you for inviting me. The words of our call to worship are by Henri Frederick Ariel. Let mystery have its place in you. Do not always be turning up your whole soil with the plowshare of self-examination, but leave a little fallow corner in your heart ready for any seed the winds may bring. Reserve a nook of a shadow for the passing bird. Keep a place in your heart for the unexpected guests, an altar for an unknown God. Time for our text slide.
Please rise as you are able for our chalice lighting and our covenant, which is printed in our order of service.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
furlough. I'm Diane's oldest husband. So tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. So I was asked to light the menorah. So I'm gonna light the menorah. It's a little cheating because it's early. But as we light it today, like I came in, it was a couple of years ago, I gave a little talk about Hanukkah. But I think the light really represents lightness and the darkness that's out there, and represents hope. And with the darkness, that there is hope out there. So part of it, as I light it, maybe we could think about, in Australia, there's 11 people who were killed. I don't know if you heard of Bondi Beach doing a Hanukkah service. And closer to home, there was Brown University. So as we light it, maybe it'll be a good time to think about the hope that's still out there, hopefully, in times of darkness. So I'm gonna do lighting of the menorah, and hopefully we can think of those things while we're doing it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu l'chadek ner shel Hanukkah. And the last thing I would just say is, in this darkness and all the times that are going on, maybe we just take a look outside and realize that something bigger than us maybe, but it is really beautiful, and that we have our stuff that goes on here, but maybe we look outside and realize that there is a lot of beauty and a lot of amazing things looking out that window at nature and what is out there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Deb Keller-Wood, the Director of Spiritual Development. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And today, for the Time for All Ages, I'm going to talk about when I grew up, what things we did. We started out spending Christmas every year, first at my mom's house, then at my dad's house, then at my grandparents' house, then back home to actually open our presents and play with them. But it was okay because it was all about family. And we always had an Advent that we lit, and the candles were so special. Then my dad remarried. He remarried a Jewish woman who brought a whole new set of rituals and holidays with her. And so we started celebrating Hanukkah, and it had candles. And at first it was great because it meant presents each night. Sounds great. But then we took a turn with it. They had to be presents of things we could do, or things we could say, or things we could make to love each other. And then we started transferring that thought to Christmas. And we could make things for each other, and do things for each other, and make those kinds of presents. And so our holidays started to kind of come together in a new way. And then there was this new holiday, Kwanzaa, that I knew nothing about. And I learned about it. As a teacher, it's kind of my job to learn stuff a lot. And I really loved what that represented. And it had candles again. And then we had Kwanzaa here. And Marcus and his family talked about Kwanzaa and how they celebrate it and what it means to them. And we talked about how that could be incorporated with all of these other holidays. The one thing that always stands out to me is it's all about candles and light and joy. And so you think about, we light a chalice every week. And we look at that flame and we feel the joy it brings us, and what a beautiful thought about hope and looking out at nature. When there's heavy stuff, how do we keep that hope? How do we keep that light in our hearts? Taking time to think about that is a gift we give ourselves, and we don't necessarily give it to ourselves enough. So hopefully today at some point you can find a candle to light and a moment to sit and think about what it means to you during all of these wonderful holidays. And so I'm going to take the youth with me up for our journey of learning and discovery as we sing.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it
morning, Scrooge calls humbug. There are times, I suspect, when many of us at this season might secretly like to imitate at least the feelings, if not the words and deeds, of one Ebenezer Scrooge. You know the story well, of course, as told by the eminent Unitarian theologian of Christmas, Charles Dickens, in A Christmas Carol. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" "Christmas a humbug, Uncle," said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said, "Bah!" again, following it up with humbug. "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be?" returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas! Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." "Uncle," pleaded the nephew. "Nephew," returned the uncle sternly, "keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it," repeated Scrooge's nephew, "but you don't keep it." "Let me leave it alone then," said Scrooge. "Much good may it do you, much good it has ever done you. Good afternoon," he added. "I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?" "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. "A Happy New Year." "Good afternoon," said Scrooge. The nephew is followed by gentlemen asking charity for the poor, and Scrooge turns them away, saying, "It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen." The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol. But at the first sound of "God bless you, merry gentlemen, may nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and even more congenial frost. As his clerk, Bob Cratchit, is about to depart for the day, Scrooge resents the fact that he will take Christmas off, with pay no less. And though it is but once a year, he declaims, "A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December," said Scrooge. buttoning his greatcoat to the chin. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. And so our reading.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 244. Came upon the midnight.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December, says Scrooge, buttoning his greatcoat to the chin. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. Well, it's certainly fortunate that most of the world doesn't take the part of Scrooge, at least not openly. Scrooge was a banker, an entrepreneur, and exploiter, at least of Bob Cratchit, a no-nonsense businessman. No surprise that among us, there walk still many such Scrooges. Of course, most of them know better than to go around saying, "Bah, humbug!" Although occasionally I do hear strains of that. But there are other words that mean the same thing that are still in vogue. Scrooge probably thought he was a self-made man. He pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. He deserved every bit of the gold that he had laid up in his secret chamber. He was a success, he told himself, because he worked hard. Anyone who wasn't successful, not to mention poor, had no one to blame but themselves. An attitude that is widely shared to this day. For Scrooge, what counted was money. After all, what else is a counting house for? There was no room for anything else. No unknowns, no mysteries, no magic, no surprises, just money. Now, Scrooge would have felt quite comfortable among the Puritan founders of our New England parishes, and we all bear the blame here because you came first, after all, in 1620. They, like Scrooge, frowned upon the celebration of Christmas. In fact, the celebration of Christmas was strictly forbidden by law for 150 years after the Puritans first arrived on these shores. They rejected the celebration of Christmas because it reeked of popery. Christmas masses, candles, Hail Mary, and it had pagan roots in winter solstice celebrations, which I hear y'all are celebrating next Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, it being, in fact, the winter solstice next Sunday. And far too many people celebrated by getting drunk. There was a general excess of wassailing on that day for their tastes and beliefs. Bah, humbug! And then along came the Unitarians with yet another heresy. The Unitarian Clement Clark Moore penned "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" in 1823 and established the image of St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, as the bringer of gifts for the holiday. Samuel Coleridge, the poet, he of the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, briefly served as a Unitarian minister in England. And he says he traveled to Germany one winter, and there he saw a ritual around a fir tree where not only did the children receive gifts from their parents, but they also gave their parents gifts. He wrote there were 8 or 9 children, and the eldest daughter and the mother wept aloud for joy and tenderness, and the tears ran down the face of the father, and he clasped his children so tight to his breast, it seemed as if he did it to stifle the sob that was rising within him. I was very much affected. Coleridge loved how this tradition taught children about generosity and unselfishness, and his story about it was published in the Christian Register, the official Unitarian magazine of the early 1820s, soon after our founding, when William Mallory Channing preached "What is Unitarianism" in 1819. And this, of course, was one of the great answers to that universal question: how do we teach our children to be generous? And this gift exchange among parents and children became part of the Christian tradition, not only in Unitarian homes, but all across the country. The Reverend James Fallon, an immigrant from Germany who became minister of one of the Unitarian churches in Lexington, introduced the custom of decorating a Christmas tree to New England in 1832. Around the same time, Prince Albert, the consort of Queen Victoria, introduced the same tradition from his own Germanic roots. Reverend Fallon was remembered after his death, especially for his commitment to the cause of abolition, a commitment far too few of his fellow Unitarian ministers shared. Now, I'm going to divert a little because I discovered this morning in your library a tome entitled Channing's Life. Now, William Ellery Channing became a hero of mine because I did my internship as a minister 20 years ago at Arlington Street Church. And on the few occasions I was allowed to preach when I would come out the front door to greet parishioners as they left, right across the street there was a statue of William Ellery Channing, and I would say, "So, did I do okay, Bill?" And this volume, Channing's Life, reminds me that when Reverend Fallon died in an unfortunate accident in a steamship crossing the Long Island Sound in 1840, he was so notorious as an abolitionist that he was not being celebrated in the Unitarian churches of the day, including the Federal Street Church, which became Arlington Street. And Channing asked to be able to preach a funeral service for Fallon, and he was refused by the leaders of his congregation. So instead of having a funeral for Fallon, he simply turned the Sunday morning service into a memorial to Fallon's life. That's part of why I love William Ellery Channing. And then, of course, there was Charles Dickens, the English Unitarian who penned A Christmas Carol in 1843. Scrooge's story doesn't end with bah humbug, of course. After that, in the night, magic happens. Scrooge's dream that comes to him, maybe better a vision, in which he's transported back to the miseries of his own childhood and forward to a miserable, lonely death despite all the gold he's accumulated, and then to the present, where the humble Bob Cratchit is celebrating a Christmas feast with his family, sharing the kind of fun and enjoyment and happiness that Scrooge has banished from his own life. Converted by this dream, he begins to allow that magic to come into his own life as well, by sharing and caring and giving rather than hoarding. In this way, he experienced the possibility of magic and mystery and real fulfillment. The vision and its fulfillment came to him unbidden in the midst of his truly impoverished life of bah humbug. And in this way, he reconnected with the spirit of the child in each of us, the spirit of magic and the possibility of precious relationships far more valuable than money. One of my colleagues tells a story of how one of their children sees a star of particular brightness and in her excitement tries to show it to her parents. Look, look, but they're all preoccupied with grown-up things, paying bills, planning menus, finishing sermons, and brush her off. Finally, she gets in their faces and says, "You be glad on that star." She's asking them to leave bah humbug behind and experience the magic of the star, which came unbidden in that moment, as did the vision that finally woke Scrooge up to wonder and gratitude and the mystery of love, as does the magic of the Christmas story in which angels appear and the lofty are cast down, the lowly are lifted up, a story of a surprisingly vivid star and of wise men from afar and humble shepherds nearby, each of whose lives are touched by that magic. Stars, dreams, angels, these are the things of which the Christmas story and its celebration remind us. So in this season, see if you can't recover a little bit of the magic and mystery you might have experienced as a child. The simple expectancy not just of gifts, but of shared love expressed in feasting and sharing and singing. See if you can't hear the bell that the hero of the Polar Express receives from Santa Claus on Christmas morning. Our Puritan forebears derided the pagan roots of the celebration of Christmas, but we can embrace them, finding that the primal fear evoked by the coming of winter darkness can be overcome by celebration and joy in the company of others. You be glad on that star. Mary Oliver, in her Christmas poem, The World I Live In, refuse to live locked in the orderly house of reasons and proofs. The world I live in and believe in is wider than that. And anyway, what's wrong with maybe? You wouldn't believe what once or twice I've seen. I'll just tell you this. Only if there are angels in your head will you ever possibly see one.